Welcome to the Jeremiah Show. Got two very special guests on the show today. I'm so excited to introduce you to. They introduced me to their films, which we're going to talk about today. And I really encourage you to see both of these films. I really enjoyed them. We got Christine Lamont on the show. She's a producer, director, and writer, and former film marketing executive at Universal, Disney, and Orion. She is the founder and the president of Monte Productions. Christine's a longtime member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, where she serves as a member of the executive committee of the Student Academy Awards. She's also a member of the Academy of Television Arts and the Alliance of Women Directors. Christine Lamont's current projects, two of which she brought to us today, and we'll talk about, include 3 Italian feature documentaries. She is in post-production in Rome on Ai Weiwei's Turandot, a co-production with Italy's Incipit Films, which follows Ai Weiwei as he makes his operatic directorial debut at the Rome Opera House, bringing his activist and artistic vision to Puccini's Turandot. Christine also produced and wrote Viva Verdi, about Casa Verdi in Milan, the home for retired opera singers built by Giuseppe Verdi in 1896, and Children of the River, which is now also in post-production. Joining us today is also Nicholas Pike, Emmy Award-winning Hollywood composer. Nicholas has become one of the most sought-after composers in the industry, exhibiting a wide stylistic range and command of both orchestral and electronic composition. Welcome, Christine and Nicholas.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
Thanks,
so good to be here.
Yep, great to be with you.
It's good to have you here. We were talking before the show started, and we all share a mutual love for radio.
Dude, I love radio. I spent a lot of time in Boston, where radio really was big for a long time. Still listen to radio. I love it.
It's such a great medium. Have you done any shows or specifically on radio about your career and your films, Christine?
I'm just trying to think. The last radio interview that I did, I can't bring it up right now, Jeremiah. What about you, Nick? Have you been doing any radio interviews?
Well, you're not. It's funny you mentioned Boston, because I don't think I've done any radio interviews since I was at school in Boston, when I did some interviews and played some music over there. You know?
Actually, Jeremiah, Adagio is radio, and also I think it's a podcast. It's also a Zoom. It has a platform online, and I did that. I did that. Sorry, I did that this week, and that was with Fred Plotkin, who is the #1 opera expert in the world. And so we talked about opera for 2 hours, about Verdi and Puccini. It was beautiful, and he's such a great conversationalist. And we talked about everything from books to movies to TV, and it was great. I loved it. That's why I love the medium. It's easy. It flows. It's organic.
It's just and when you've got that good conversation, especially somebody that in your area there that knows and loves opera, I'm sure those conversations are great. I'll have to listen to that.
Yeah. It'll be on March. He has March is the month of women. So he does all these interviews with women. So I think I'm on March 28th.
Okay. We'll look for that. And I'll get the address. I'll get the name of the podcast. We'll put that. It's a radio show and a podcast, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll put that out on the link, and people can find it. So how did the two of you meet?
Well, we're both Academy members. And one of our dear friends, Alan Rich, who's also an incredible music writer of beautiful music. He introduced us at one of the screenings that we were at, and Nick was so great.
We were at a lunch, for some project, and Alan says to me, I was sitting next to him. He said, "There's someone here you got to meet." I was like, "Oh, okay," and so he took me over to Christine, and Christine, we started chatting, and Christine started telling. This is like years ago. Started telling me about the film, and it sounded amazing. And so she said, "Well, I can send you. We have like a 12-minute little teaser kind of a thing." So she sent it over to me, and I watched it, and it was so amazing. It was so full of energy and life, and I mean, it was amazing. It was so amazing that I was like sat down and wrote the song for the film.
Oh, wow. So it had that effect on you, immediately inspired.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't happen that often. It's nice.
I was going to say.
I think it was just 1 or 2 days later, Nick, that you sent me your music, your beautiful, sweet Dreams of Joy. And I believe it. I said, and this really resonated for him. You got it immediately.
Yeah, no, it was a beautiful moment, and
So were you aware of each other before, or each other's work at all, or
no?
Was it really kind of just this blind meet and then you hit it off and as artists and
yeah.
It's really true. But Nick's music and his sensibility, since I've come to know it, is really aligns with what I love and what I know about music. So it was a perfect. What did they call it in the Jewish? Is it when you match people together?
Kisma,
That's kismet. Yeah,
Kismet.
it was a really beautiful thing that Alan did, and Alan actually became an executive producer on our film on Viva Verdi.
Yeah.
Part of our family, our Verdi family. He was anyway, but he made it official.
Yeah. Alan, he wrote some of the songs for The Bodyguard back in the day, just to give you an idea of where he is.
Yeah.
I think he's a $1 billion songwriter. Over a billion. Yeah.
So that sounds like a pretty impactful lunch. It was worth it for everybody involved. It was a great meetup.
It was really great,
Yeah.
Well, you're here today to talk about 2 films, but I wanted to start with Ai Weiwei's Turandot, if we could.
Sure.
I was really I didn't know this. Puccini, obviously the great Italian composer who wrote La Boheme and Tosca, Madame Butterfly, and Turandot, which are today's most performed operas, right? But he didn't finish Turandot.
Right.
So I wasn't aware of that, and I thought that was a really neat aspect of the film. It was also his final opera, right? Turandot was the final opera that he wrote.
That's right. And some people take advantage of that, and some people are purists. And you cannot do anything other than stop when he's. Other people have their own interpretation, and they finish the opera. It's a very very interesting opera. There's a lot of pros and cons about those endings that people create. So when Ai Weiwei was approached by the Italian, the head of the Rome Opera House, to do an opera, he said, "Well, what do you have in mind?" And they said, "Turandot." And he said, "Oh, this sounds very interesting to me. I like to do what I don't know how to do," he said. And so I would love to do this. It's difficult. Opera's difficult, and I like trouble. So that's how he approached it. So he designed.
That's a great way to approach. I love that that outlook, that optimism, right? Isn't that a great way to, especially as an artist, to approach a project? Something I'm not used to doing. Let's do it.
Exactly. I think I've done that all my life.
Yeah.
It's by fire. It's the only way. You just get thrown in and you sink or swim. And if
why do you suppose you're attracted to that?
And what?
Why do you suppose that you're attracted to sinking or swimming, that you're attracted to projects that you've never done before or things that you've never done before? What's that?
I grew up with four brothers, and I was the only girl, and it was the only way that I could really prove myself. I could do that. And then,
Yeah.
how do I do that? Let me figure it out. And
It
so I
was literally sink or swim with your brothers.
did that.
Well, I
Yes,
think,
Nick.
but as an artist, if you're not challenged, you're not digging as deep.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. So I think often it brings out the best in an artist to be challenged for sure and get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
I think a
Well,
lot of actors also always say, if it doesn't scare you, you shouldn't be doing it. You should be doing things that you fear so that you could overcome that. Why are we here?
right.
To grow, to evolve.
That's a great way really to look at all of life and each one of our individual lives, to look at it like that. Well, if you're not growing, if you're not scared, you're probably not doing it right.
That's it. It's either or, right?
Yeah. Well, Ai Weiwei, he's such an interesting person, a human being, an artist, and his outlook on the world is so unique um, and needed right now, really. But for the listeners that don't know Ai Weiwei or his work, could one of you do your best to explain who he is and what he stands for and what drives him?
I think he is one of the maybe 4 or 5 most famous living artists on the global stage today. He is known worldwide. And because he's had such an interesting background in life, he's passionate, he's driven, he's in the news a lot, he's fearless, and he's a humanitarian that fights for human rights through art. He thinks that everything that you do is art, everything is politics. Whether if you don't do art, then maybe you're not political enough. He believes that it can change the world. That's why he does things, to change the world, to educate people, to entertain them as well, but to educate them so that they can make up their own mind and not take on things that are prescribed, that are just given to us every day, like pablum in schools and other places. He's a thinking man's artist.
Did he, when you worked with him, did he ever explain where that came from, that outlook? I mean, I know he, he grew up in China and there are a lot of oppression
His
there,
father,
right?
his father was a very famous artist that was exiled, and he was a young boy when his father was exiled. So he lived that world and outside of Beijing, where he was born, and it affected him. It was a sadness, I think, that he felt, and he has that artist DNA in him, and he channeled it and used it to create things that make a difference, that make a statement about life in the world. Why do art otherwise, unless it's going to be a statement about things? There's a lot of Weiwei-isms. There's books, there's great books. He's very philosophical. And actually, our film is very philosophical. He's not the only one that is philosophical about things. Oksana, the conductor from the Ukraine, Livnev,
Yeah.
also very philosophical. We're going to do a little book on the philosophy of Ai Weiwei's Turandot. It's pithy. It's
That
important.
was one of the things that I really enjoyed about the film was when you put up quotes and things that he said, not only when he spoke to the camera and put out his, what you call them, Weiwei's, what did you call them? Weiwei's isms. Yeah. But also when put in quotes over the film.
Mhm. We did.
Yeah.
We did. We think that they're important, and they're just important. Words are just as important as visual images to us, and so to him as well.
So what's some of his most significant work that you love, some of your favorite work that he's done?
We're lucky in Los Angeles. We've seen a lot of his installations, a lot of his art has been shown here. And I guess some of the ones that I really love, a lot of his books that I pour over often because they're stunning. But one of them is when he dropped one of the Ming Dynasty beautiful 2,000-year-old jars. And it was an expression of art. And does it last? And is it meaningful? And can we do without it? How important is it in our world and in our life? We talk about that in the film too, about music. If there's no music,
Mm-hmm.
how would the world be with no music? I mean, Jeremiah, especially, in talking about radio and music, Nick, that you compose all the time. Without music, where are we? Without nature, where are we? And that's where a lot of music comes from, which Verdi says. Verdi was, to me, the most important opera composer, and Puccini replaced Verdi after he died, in a way. So they're like father and son, if you will. To me, it might be blasphemy to be saying that, but I feel that way.
Why was he so important to you? What you're the most important
Oh,
to
Verdi,
you?
number one, wrote in the A tuning. There's a thing called Verdi's Ah, which is the Ah from Amen and the Om. And it's 432 hertz instead of 440. And that's the sound of the universe. And it's a healing sound. It gets rid of anxiety. It's the sound that all of his operas are in. So they're very special. They're elevated. They elevate consciousness. I'm obsessed. I want a cat and guy. I love him. And Nick actually borrowed my Verdi, which is behind me, for a while, inspired some of his music. Nick's music in our film, Verdi, is so stunning.
Oh,
He
it's beautiful.
cannot tell where Verdi is or where Nick comes in a way. It's such a beautiful, beautiful fabric weaving. It's stunning. I love listening to it. I listen to it all the time, actually, Nick's music, and I hum it more than I hum anything else, is Sweet Dreams of Joy. Nick, I do. I love your music so very much.
Thanks,
We're
Chris.
actually, and we're
Lucky,
featuring.
very lucky to have you.
Thanks.
I'll
It's been
second that.
great to be a part. It's been great to be a part of it. It really has, And I mean, starting with the inspiration of that first 12-minute thing,
Yeah.
I don't know. It just doesn't happen that often where you're just that, tuned into something and you just want to, in my case, write music for it.
Exactly. Jeremiah, I think that with both these films, but especially Viva Verdi, we're really reaching an untapped and underserved audience that's really craving, hungry. They told me this at the Santa Barbara Film Festival. We are hungry for these movies that are more sophisticated, that are about something that's important, that reach us, that films that are heartfelt, that make us laugh and cry. And it's beautiful to hear that. It's just a
That's
confirmation.
so true. So
Yeah.
true. When I got the screener, it was Sunday morning. First thing I woke up, had a cup of coffee, and I'm like, I want to watch. It just the film sounded like such an attractive way to spend the morning, and they're really I'm searching those types of films out.
Right.
Um, as you heard at the film festival from other people, I mean, I know I'm looking for that and searching for that because there's really not to knock other work, but there's really not enough to kind of replenish your soul, and good when you see a great film and a great story that includes great music and cinematography and all the rest of the production that goes into it, and it stands out and it's memorable and it makes you feel better. It really, really does. So, yeah, congratulations on this film, on both these films. So, can we describe Ai Weiwei's Turandot? You mentioned in the beginning that for most, that you don't mess with Turandot. You don't, you stop where it stops. But Ai Weiwei had a different idea. He had a different vision for it.
That's right. Well, first of all, he did all of the production design. He did all of the costumes. He did all of the projections that are on the screen, the backdrop. And he modernized the opera. The opera was, I think, 1926 is maybe 1924, 26, when it first premiered in Italy. And he modernized it by introducing a lot of the ills that plague mankind. So whether it's immigration, war, Ukraine, COVID, which actually interrupted the filming of the Ai Weiwei's Turandot. And he just makes it modern. He makes you feel like you're living this, and it's an exciting story that's being told because you can relate to it. Modern day relations,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of it. And he also created an extra character, which I love. And that character, which is so stunning, I love the way he moves. It's a Chinese character that it actually represents the internal emotions of the characters. So the characters that are on stage. So it's this beautiful twirling with these costumes that are stunning. I just love looking at it. It's a stunning thing. And
There's a brilliant idea.
right.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Right. And this is the story, Jeremiah. Maxim Derevianko, who's our director, he also was a cameraman on Viva Verdi. This is a beautiful opera family that we're talking about. And when I lived in Italy, he was more or less my mentee. I was mentoring him. He was 21 doing his student film. And I taught at the School of Visual Arts. I'm always, working with emerging filmmakers. And so I was living in Rome with my husband as an author. And my landlady came and said, we've got this young, my girlfriend has this young son who we think is talented, but we're not sure. I said, well, send me his material. Let me see. And I said, no, wait a minute. This guy is not just talented. He's an artist. He's incredible. So we put his film on a fast track, got him into some festivals. I helped him with it. And he is such an artist. He's, for me, young men and women too, in Italy and in Europe, they can sing arias, they can quote philosophers, they study the arts, and they're important to them. And so they grow up with them. Maxim's father was a Bolshoi ballet dancer who defected from Russia. And his mother was a prima ballerina that danced on the Rome opera stage. His grandfather was the first violinist who was on the Rome opera stage. So it was in his DNA. And he ended up, after working with us, in Rome, he became the film and TV person at the Rome Opera House. And he said, I really want to do something with one of these great directors. Sofia Coppola came through. And when he heard about Ai Weiwei, he said, this is it. This is the one I want to do, because he understood about freedom of expression being a problem, growing up with that, being thwarted.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding it internally. He saw it with his father. So it's such a beautiful thing that he can take this and bring his artistry to it. He's an artist. It's so beautiful to see.
What drew you to the project, Christine? I mean, was there one thing? Was there
Well,
many things? Was it the people that were involved?
I grew up with opera. I love music. I love opera. And I grew up with my grandmother when she was making her sauce every Sunday. She would be playing these Mario Lanza red vinyl albums, and how beautiful it was. I didn't know exactly what about opera, but I knew it was opera, and I knew it touched me and it resonated for me. And then I was lucky enough when I was at Universal, they gave me La Traviata, Zeffirelli's film, so it was kind of full circle. So I learned a lot from Zeffirelli and became friendly with him. We became nice friends, and I learned a lot from him about opera. And I just have always adored it. When my husband and I travel, which was a lot to Europe, we would always go to all the great opera houses. How lucky and how blessed. And then to have two opera films in my life, to listen to Verdi for 10 years and mix music, and to listen to Puccini for 3 years. What a blessing. I'm so lucky, honestly. To work in Italy, how lucky.
Yes, you
Yeah.
are. That is a blessing. Well, we're going to take a break real quick and we're going to listen to some of the music now. Um, with your permission, you sent me an email that described the music. It sort of set the music up in its place within the film, within your film. And with your permission, if I could just read what you wrote, because it sort of brought it to life, or gave it me a new perspective when I listened.
Absolutely. This is what our director used these three pieces to build the our our film, our documentary.
So just a quick question, how did he choose these three pieces?
They stood out for him.
Okay. It spoke to him.
Yes, it was the spine that he built everything else on.
Interesting. Okay, so the first one that we're going to hear going to break is People of Beijing. This is the Law. And this is how the opera starts. It's really powerful because it immediately sets the rules of the game and the instructions to follow the story. So who wants the hand of the evil Princess Turandot to solve the three riddles? If you fail, your head will be cut off. Metaphorically speaking, you say in our documentary, Turandot embodies any totalitarianism and dictatorships. Like you explained earlier, China, the USA right now, Russia, and unfortunately there are many more, but those are the ones who really are ruling right now. So this is People of Beijing. This is the Law. Do you have anything to add to that, Christine?
That was pretty perfect. That's exactly what we feel. That's why it was used. And
yeah. And we play the entire song here, just so you know. It's so good. I didn't want to cut any of it. Okay, we're going to listen to that, and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. My special guest today, Christine Lamont and Nicholas Pike. He's a film composer. She's a producer and founder of Lamont Productions, and Viva Verde is her film that we're going to talk about coming up after the next break, and Ai Weiwei's Turandot. Enjoy the music. We'll be right back.